All right, welcome to TSQA 2025. We're in March. Tonight we have a special presentation on your resume. One of our favorite things to talk about at TSQA is getting better at our jobs or getting better jobs. So we're going to do more of the getting better jobs conversation tonight. So Corey is going to tell us more about himself. Over to you, all ears. Listen and hear.
All right. Hey, y'all. My name is Corey Flights. Thank you very much for giving me your time this evening. Jenny and I worked together previously at Willow Tree, and um, she reached out and said, we're looking to talk through things about making an impact with your resume, and kind of here we are. So, hopefully, you guys can see my screen. We're ready to rock. So we're just going to keep going. So again, my name is Corey. I've been in the kind of talent acquisition and technical recruiting space specifically for over the last 10 years. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, I started my career in staffing, as most people do. Not a great experience. We'll talk more about about that later. And I've spent the last several years recruiting in-house for two separate kind of digital product agencies and ultimately hiring lots of folks like y'all. My specialty is within the software development lifecycle, specifically software engineers, test engineers, QAEs, QAs, however you want to refer to yourselves, engineering leaderships, engineering leadership roles, excuse me, and some product roles. So my slides are a bit cheesy, but we'll have to kind of just deal with it because that's not my specialty. Before we jump into it, I want to preface that everything you're going to hear tonight are kind of like tips and tricks on what I personally am looking for. I'm very biased. I think over the last 4 or 5 years specifically, the volume of applicants for recs that I'm working on is doubled or tripled. So everything is about time. And I'm choosing the resumes that I want to interview based off of what I'm seeing on those resumes. Sounds pretty straightforward, but I think ultimately the tips and tricks I'm going to provide should hopefully land better interviews or more interviews for y'all. Because that's ultimately what's about is choosing, rolling the dice and choosing the best candidates that give me the best chance at filling my jobs fast. So, we'll kind of jump right into it. So there's a couple of things that we'll talk about tonight. Mostly we're going to be spending time on kind of resume 101, and then I'm actually going to be reviewing three resumes in real time with y'all. I have a couple of minutes dedicated to LinkedIn 101 and interviewing 101, and like Susan shared, we're going to chat at the end about Q&A. All right, let's start with resume 101. So I think this is obviously the key to landing more interviews. The bad news is probably your resume mirrors the tens of thousands that I've seen or review every single day. And most of them aren't good. They're definitely not great. So the good news is that you're in good company. The even better news is that hopefully the steps that we're talking through today will help separate you from the crowd and your competition because a lot of resumes are just very, very poorly written. So that kind of rolls into my next theme. Most people get into my profession because they went into sales or account management. So most folks are getting into the profession through staffing. Um, Fun fact, most recruiters are really bad at their job, like very bad. And I know that y'all have dealt with them previously or dealing with them currently, and you'll certainly deal with them in the future. So I think when I work with folks on building their resumes, you got to make sure that it's easy for them to read because they don't understand what you do. They don't understand the technical jargon. And I think if you can make it easier for them to review and understand what you do, then that's going to ultimately lead to better kind of like outcomes and interviews and things like that. So let's first start with some like myths and general like pointers and keys to your resume. The one-page resume is dead. It's been dead for a long time, but I see it all day long. Whether you have 3 years of experience or 20 years of experience, do not have a one-page resume. You're absolutely limiting your ability to tell your story, um, and you're not doing yourself any favors. The intro
What if I managed
paragraph,
to put everything on one page in my resume?
say that again.
What if I managed to put everything in one page in my resume?
How many years of experience do you have?
8.
Yeah, I don't think you're doing yourself any favors. I think you need to tell your story, and we'll talk a little bit more about that kind of as we progress here.
Okay.
Um, I think the intro paragraph is really key. It's kind of like the jump off to me understanding like holistically what you've been doing, providing the experience that differentiates you from your competition. We'll talk about good examples and bad examples here in a minute. And just kind of close out there, I'd say again, if you're entry level, recent grad, sure. Like maybe you have a year of experience or something like that, one page, probably okay. If you have 2, 3, 4 years of experience, don't limit yourself to one page resume. Um, as far as dates go, I think bias and ageism are unfortunately very, very real in our industry. So if you graduated 10 years ago, or have certifications from 5 years ago, probably don't want to put dates on them because it's only gonna hurt. Um, there is this theme that's been going on over the last 2 years on social and LinkedIn that the ATS is eating my resume. It's being unfair. I'm not able to pass through this ATS monster. I've worked for companies that are 100 people. I've worked for companies that are 5,000 to 10,000 people globally. I've never had an ATS that does my job for me, ever. Now, if you're interviewing for FANG and some of the big, big shops like Meta, where they receive probably 20,000 applications a day, sure. There's probably some type of ATS or AI component that's helping to filter resumes. But in the 10 years I've worked, I've never rejected the system has never rejected a candidate that I haven't first reviewed their resume. So that's just not how it works. It's a total myth. If you're not getting it past the ATS, quote unquote, it's probably because your resume is not good enough or not customized for the job that you're looking for. And then finally, skills, and we'll talk about good examples and bad examples here in a second. An accurate skills section of your resume can be really powerful, but if it's not used properly, it's just words. And we'll talk about that here in a second. So, intro paragraphs. These are 95% of what I see all day, every day. A highly motivated and experienced developer looking to build and maintain, deploy high quality, scalable software solutions. That doesn't tell me anything about you. Everybody who's applying is highly motivated, and everybody who's applying is probably experienced in some way, shape, or form. Do not use terms like that. Do not use terms like mastery. If you have a passion for professional and technical growth, tell me about it. How are you using that? When have you done that? If you have lots of bullet points, or excuse me, any bold words and things like that, that's fine. I'm not mad at that, but if you don't tell me in the bullet points how you're using these skills, then I think it's a kind of a waste of time. So I'd say this is really bad. This is just as bad. Not terrible here on the third one. And then the last one's a bit better. Tell me more about your overall years of experience, the environments that you're working in, fast-paced, etc., the tools and areas that you're proficient. Again, I would probably not use proficient unless you want to be tested on those areas. But again, you see the themes here. Just try to be more custom and more specific with your intro paragraph, because again, that's the first thing I'm reading. I want to get excited about folks that I'm going to be interviewing, and if it's really dull and it's the standard, it's not really a great start for y'all. So here's a good example of what I'm looking for. And again, this is probably like a 12 out of 10. This is amazing. I'm not expecting this amount of detail, but if you can get this level of granularity, that's going to be really, really solid for y'all. Again, it sets the tone for the reader. It's going to allow for you to tell me how your experience differentiates you from the competition. Think through things that you were tasked with. What were you tasked with that nobody else on the team could do? What was your manager assigning you because you're the best at that thing, at that skill? Um, Again, I think it's really, really important to customize this for you. This person did a great job of talking through their overall years of experience, talking through things that they're really productive with, that's custom to them. And then I think the last sentence or the last paragraph is also really, really important for talking through like what's next in your career. So this person has 7 years of experience, has acted as a sole test engineer, has done lots of mentorship and helping folks navigate their career. They're not a senior level or a staff level today. They're applying for a senior or a staff level test engineer job. And the last sentence is catered specifically to that. I'm excited to keep growing my skills and take on new leadership role that's both rewarding and challenging. So again, if you're a mid-level person applying for senior, you should be talking about how you want to be a senior. If you're a manager applying for a director, talking about that specifically. Again, the customization shows that you're doing your homework. It shows that you want it, and it's not just the same old, same old. All right. This is my nightmare. All right. This is what I'm seeing all the time. I'm actually the top two here. There's actually a third screenshot that I couldn't squeeze in here. This is from one resume alone. The pure insanity. The bottom left one is equally scary. Like there's no way you have proficiency in all these areas. So Just try to be mindful of not overwhelming your resume with all the things that you've ever done or every tool or technology you've ever touched. It's just not a good look. Remember this one on the right-hand side. We're going to talk about it more specifically here in a second. I think I've seen resumes that have like the little bubbles, and there's like 5 bubbles. And if you're a 4 out of 5, it means you're proficient in X, Y, and Z. This isn't too dissimilar. Again, there's no real way for me to judge how excellent you are, how very good you are at these skills. Because if you don't tell me how you've used these skills, it's all just for naught, right? So please avoid these types of skill sections. On the left, you see something that's really, really clean. The person here had over 10 years of experience. They likely could have had a screenshot similar to the ones on the last slide, but there are several things here, and they're using the skills section and the languages listed here as a jumping point to talk about their experience when building out these bullet points. So a post that I shared not too long ago, again, it's very similar to what I'm telling you all. Like if I can't see how you've used this skill, I'm going to move on to someone who can explain to me the skills that they have listed. Because again, everything is about time. I'm not going to waste my time if you can't tell me your journey, tell me your story, tell me how you've done these things. So again, if you really want to stand out, spend time on the skill section, cleaning it up, and then using the bullet points to really tell me about your journey and your story. Again, same type of thing. So going back to that one screenshot where it was they had the levels saying excellent, very good. That person didn't have anything about their skills in any of the bullet points. So again, you're telling me you're excellent at X, Y, and Z, but you're not telling me anything outside of that. So immediately I'm done. I'm moving on to the next candidate because if you can't tell me what you're doing, it doesn't make sense to move forward with you from a timing perspective. So let me take a quick pause, get some water. You all can take through like a general understanding of like what bullet points and like a kind of a framework to use.
Hey, Corey, but before you move on to the next section,
Sure.
what do you make about removing an introduction if it's just the bullet point template, boilerplate? This is what it is. Hey, I'm motivated and excited. Would you just remove it?
If you don't have something that's custom for your intro paragraph, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Um, I'm not sure removing it is the move. Honestly, I would just spend a little bit more time trying to think about, how you can professionally brag about yourself without sounding a little bit too, cocky. But again, if intro paragraph isn't your jam, like again, I'm biased. I like having the intro paragraph to go off of because it gives me a good understanding of what I'm going to get myself into. So when I'm working with folks on the resume, I think like the majority of the time that we spend together is building up their bullet points. Bullet points are really what's going to sink y'all if you don't have a quality kind of part there. Like again, I can't understand what you're working through. So a couple of pieces of framework here, a couple of examples. I think the biggest point that I want y'all to be focused on are outcomes and quantifying accomplishments if possible using data or ROI. I know that's not applicable for every single person in every single career, but if you can have some of that stuff, that really kind of paints a picture for what you're able to do. All right. So this is someone that I've worked with who redid their bullet points and did a great job of kind of consolidating 15 bullet points into 4 or 5 and really telling their story. You're seeing a lot of context here. I'm not the type of person who's concerned with run-on sentences or really thick bullet points. I'll take that all day over something that was like 4 or 5 words and that's it. So some of the things I'm going to call out again, it served as a lead test engineer, talking about the responsibilities that they had, including mentorship, implementing processes to maintain high quality. They then further talked about their mentorship skills. They're also throwing in some of the technology and tools that they've used, Playwright, specifically in this one. So again, maybe that's something that you have in your skills, Playwright, and you're talking about how you've used Playwright in your experience. There's some ROI in the last 2 ones, which I really enjoy. Again, may not be totally applicable for you or your role or your career, but if you're able to throw some of that stuff in there, I think it's really, really helpful. Similarly, in a different role, but the same person, same type of thing. Again, talking through some of the technologies that they have here. Because again, very green recruiters are buzzword recruiters. They're doing Control F and they're searching for whatever skill is listed on the job description that they're working off of. And if you don't have that, you don't have the ability to tell how you've used those things, you're not doing yourself any favors. So talk through how you're using these tools, talk through some things that are important. For this particular section, this candidate was interviewing for a company that was very, very passionate about accessibility. So they went back and added their accessibility experience previously and included 2 bullet points on it. So again, I understand that customizing your resume for each and every job that you want to apply for totally sucks because I've been there, I've done that, but it's going to lead to better outcomes. So make sure that you're doing that. Okay. And then last is very similar, same types, deep bullet points, talking through custom things, number of people that they're working with, partnering, stakeholders, collaboration with internal folks, technologies, etc. All right. Any questions we want to go to real quick, Susan?
Not yet.
Okay.
There is an observation that
Sure.
percentage of improvement, like 350% test coverage improvement, kind of hits the BS meter. So that's one of the points of information that,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point, right? Again, I don't know if y'all are going to have access to the data that I'm seeking, but I would at least try to ballpark it just so at least there's something. And again, if you don't
Yeah.
have it, great. If you do have it, great. So, all right. We're getting close to the end on the resume stuff, so bear with me. I think the last couple things that I'll share as far as pet peeves go, don't ever put your mailing address on your resume. Nobody on the planet needs to know where you live other than you. So there are way too many crazy people out there. Get rid of the mailing address, please. As I shared a couple minutes ago, if your resume, your cover letter, any information related to your application calls out a different company than the one that you're applying for, it shows me that you're going too fast. You don't want to work for my company, and you're not customizing your documents. So if I'm hiring for folks at Meta and you're saying to your hiring manager at Netflix, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Hey,
Going
I got a
back,
question.
sure.
So,
Don, we're not supposed to ask
uh,
questions, bro.
wait, what?
Wait
I
till the
can't.
Q&A. Wait till the Q&A. No, wait till the Q&A. Just wait.
Okay.
Just wait a second. All right. God, I can't.
All right. Um, Kind of going back to the bias stuff earlier, don't have any headshots in your resume ever. Um, Seems pretty straightforward. Broken links make my job hard, so make it easy. Link all your stuff, make sure it's working. No resumes that are over 5 pages, no resumes that are less than 1 page unless you're right out of school. Again, we've talked about kind of the skills section. If you haven't used any of the technology listed in your skills for the last several years and you're going to be interviewed on those skills, don't put them. I can't tell you how many people still have like COBOL and stuff on their resumes that they used 20, 30, 40 years ago. Just don't do it. And again, most recruiters, especially the green ones, don't know what they're doing, so they're going to buzzword your resume. And unless you're able to tell your story and really tell your kind of background and your experience and make it easy for them to understand, do not use technical jargon. All right, let's do LinkedIn real quick. I think the TLDR is your LinkedIn should eerily resemble your resume, if not word for word. I would encourage you to do it. We're going to talk about things that you should and shouldn't do. What you shouldn't do is not have any type of picture here. I know this on a resume, I said it definitely biases folks, and it does. If you want to have a Slack emoji, if you want to have an AI picture, if you want to have a picture of a sunset at a beach, doesn't matter. I think the one common theme that I'm seeing, especially over the last 24 months, is that folks that have low follower count or low connection count and do not have a picture are fake candidates. So you do not want to be associated with a fake candidate. So put something in your profile that helps me indicate that you are a human. I think it's important to continue to build your network on LinkedIn. Yes, I understand it's another social platform. Yes, I understand that it may not be fun to use, but for the reasons that I've shared, specifically for spam and fake candidates, you should definitely continue to build your network. And oh, by the way, when you try to find a job, it's probably going to be a good tool for you. You need to ensure that you have a lot more information than the experience listed here, which is nothing. Similarly, on the bottom right, there's no experience to talk about, but they did put skills there, which I think is a little bit of a nice thing, but we'll talk more about that here in a second. So again, whatever you're seeing on your screen, make sure that your LinkedIn is not doing any of those things. This is a little bit better, again, at least showing me that you have worked for a company, showing me that the skills you have listed, you're presumably doing at your job. But again, you're not showing me anything as far as context goes. So how can I know what you've done? This type of candidate is not going to receive a message from me or any recruiter that I know that's trying to go out and actively hunt for active talent. So do yourself a favor, make sure that your resume mirrors your LinkedIn profile so that folks reach out to you. All right, let's talk about Jenny and brag about her for a minute while she's not here. Great picture, open to work. I think that's also a thing that is spiraling on LinkedIn right now. Folks saying you shouldn't do it. What I'll tell you is that if I don't have someone within my network that I know is personally looking for an opportunity, the first place I'm going to hunt for talent is LinkedIn. And the first place I'm going to look on LinkedIn is folks that are open to work. I know that they're actively available. I know they are hungry for a new job. I'm going to message them first and foremost. So use the banner, indicate that you're open to work on the platform. If you have a job today and you don't want to put the green banner up, totally get it. At least use the tool on LinkedIn to indicate that you want a new job. Again, that signals on my end that you're hungry, and I'm gonna message you first. So lots of good stuff here from Jenny, including a custom kind of header here, which I think is really, really important. Good summary. I'm guessing it comes from her resume and or her background and experience. Again, similar over here. Lots of stuff from her resume talking about a day in the life of her role, responsibilities, tooling, all the things. The only thing that I will give Jenny a little bit of feedback on is going back to a couple of the slides earlier. There were candidates who listed skills in your LinkedIn profile. It's an easy way to do in your profile to make sure that you stand out compared to your competition. When I'm sourcing for candidates on LinkedIn, I can use keywords, I can use skills, I can use geographic location. Specifically on the skills part, again, you can list two, you can list 200. I would encourage y'all to do that and make sure it's customized for that particular role because again, the folks that have a thorough LinkedIn are going to be found first and they're going to be messaged first and probably get hired first. All right. Basic interviewing 101. Please make sure y'all are in a good place where I can hear you. I can't tell you how many calls I have with you're at Starbucks, there's lots of people in the background, you're picking up your kid from school. I understand life happens and you need to interview where you need to interview, but try your best to do it where it's quiet. It makes everybody's life a little bit easier. I love the bottom left one. I need a job, but I don't really want you to tell me. I don't want me to tell you about you. So I'm not going to be honest, but I would say you're trying to do your best of being succinct yet verbose enough to for me not to have to probe every single time for question or for an answer. So continue to be a mix of both, professionally humble yet bragging enough where you can kind of get a job. Again, the bottom right, pretty straightforward. Same thing on the top left. Just make sure that you have a good way for me to hear you. Do a pretend call or do a call with your mom. I don't know who it is. Just make sure that they can hear you properly because if I can't hear you, what's the point? I think finally is the top right. Um, Most folks I talk to are very concerned about reaching out to recruiters to ask about an update. What's the latest? Why haven't I received feedback, et cetera, et cetera. This is your job. This is your career. Go after them. Follow up with them. Do it diligently. Don't be a jerk about it, but be diligent and they will give you the feedback. So just continue to do that. I think you guys are going to be kind of in a good spot. All right. We're going to go into some sample resumes. Are there any questions while we go there?
No, I just want to make a quick note. I apologize for a little bit of the distractions happening tonight. I did have to kick out a couple of users for some profanity. So thank you all for sticking with us and getting to the good stuff.
All good. All right. Can y'all see my screen again? All right. So shout out to the folks I'm going to run through on their resumes. They volunteered to distribute essentially. So again, I'll preface that I've scanned through y'all's resumes. I've kind of in real time jotted some feedback down. Um, I'm happy to answer more questions, at the end, and or if you feel like, messaging me separately, I'm happy to kind of talk through those. But at a very, very high level, I'm going to kind of fly through it while kind of talking through some of the feedback that I have listed here. All right. So Steve, you're up first. So overall, not a bad start. Again, I would link your LinkedIn profile. Seems silly, but I would still do it. The summary's not terrible. Again, I'd like for you to tell me a little bit more around kind of the responsibilities that you've had, especially seeing as you've worked in so many different roles throughout your career. Maybe provide like a TLDR of what you've been doing recently, last 3, 4, 5 years, or what you want to do next, like that type of thing. Um, a couple grammatical errors here that I'm noticing. Not a huge concern. I would never not move someone forward due to grammatical errors, but something I'll call out. Um, I think as far as like the skills listed, if I were to control F and be a buzzword recruiter, if I went down to Python, I think it was, see if I can, well, it's not gonna let me do it in real time. I think there were a couple areas where you're able to talk through Python at length, which I love. That's exactly what I'm looking for. But as far as GitLab goes, I think GitLab's only referenced here. So again, if you are proficient in GitLab or you have the experience with GitLab, tell me more about it and bring that out more in the bullet points. Um, it may be the format that I received here, Steve, that kind of jacked up everything up. But if your format doesn't look like this normally, then I think we're good. If
Yeah.
it does look like this normally, I would maybe kind of break it down a little bit more. So DevOps, build tool systems, colon, next paragraph, boom, boom. Just make it a little bit cleaner to read. Again, nothing too crazy. I think the bullet points are really where I would want to spend a lot of time, working through things. So I think for me, things like get problem solved, that's very valid, and I know that that's what you're doing, but I just want to know more about that. So like tell me more about that. And then as far as like the bullet points go, lots of good chunks here. Maybe we just kind of consolidate, right? So I thought through the member of the infrastructure team one and created one on the left, which is evaluated, installed, and upgraded servers, including OS and software configurations, while recommending infrastructure enhancements to optimize performance, scalability, and disaster recovery readiness. So again, this is your career. I'm just making assumptions based off what I'm reading, but maybe just a way for us to consolidate so it looks a little bit cleaner there. All right. Ba 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 ba. So, as I shared earlier, well, maybe I didn't talk about this part specifically. I would say for years of experience on your resume, I would say probably cap it out at 10 to 15 years, right? So anything before 2010 or even 2015 is probably going to be in like what I would call like an other category or like a previous experience category or something like that, where you're literally just going to put in the bullet point, previous experience from 2011 to 2014, IBM, manual and automated test lab support, or whatever the title is, right? Um, and then finally, I would say if this section for the local associations is important, tell me the things that you're proud of, show me the examples. Again, this is not going to be a deal breaker for me, but I'm learning about you. So maybe it's just an opportunity for you to do a little bit more bragging. So education looks good, no date, no bias. So that's all well. Other than that, I think again, like I said, maybe most of the time is probably spent around building out these bullet points a little bit better, ensuring that your skills match the bullet points. If the skills are not relevant, I'd cut them out entirely, right? So you can tell me about your experience with relationship building and being a lifelong learner, excuse me, and being an influencer with your team. Like those are great ways to tell me about your journey and your story. Just do it in the bullet points. Okay.
Okay.
What is the first piece of this title? Like here it says DevOps build tool systems principal engineer software. What is the purpose of that first part?
Now I'm having trouble seeing my own resume on the screen because this one's somehow got screwed up when it got sent.
Yeah, probably.
Um, I guess what I was saying for skills, and I appreciate somebody else looking at this who, does this for a living. But uh, on one hand, I wanted to put some technical skills out there that I've been a Linux admin, a Windows admin, and I've been up to my nose in Microsoft Azure Server. Um, and then I have a bunch of stuff, and I do think that I'll improve my bullets. One of the bad things about this resume is they see that word DevOps and they immediately think cloud. And so that's why I use the word DevOps server. But some of them still immediately think cloud. And I don't have hardly any cloud experience, but I do have the CI/CD DevOps experience. And I also wasn't quite sure how to sell the idea of I usually get a particular role and then it works into how I'm supporting management for special projects. And I'm not quite sure how to sell that or bring that out, but I can bring that out somewhat in the stuff below because sometimes I'll have to learn a technology to do it. I'll work with the team to bring them up to speed to do it or myself. And we then, take this idea, and if management will let me roll forward with it, we will. And so, and you can see
I,
some of that in the bullets, but I'd
if I
like
could
to.
offer a suggestion, and just what was my own experience here. I am in the middle of hiring, and I think I've looked through about 2,000 resumes in the past month. So I definitely it's on the mind.
Yeah.
But I would just say that you were handpicked to do rapid prototyping and proofs of concept for management,
Oh,
for the team. So something like that, because that tells you that one, you're trusted, and two, that you're rapidly picking things up and looking at new technologies, because that tells the story in a very succinct way,
oh, fantastic. Thank you.
right?
That was a
I
very,
mean, Corey,
very
I'd
great
love
way.
some pushback on that, but I mean that's kind of how
Well,
I would think about it.
I think the best way to think about it, y'all, is literally like think as if you're having a conversation with your friends here or your partner or someone informal, and they say, Steve, give me like a day in the life of what you do. And very casually, you can explain that. That needs to be in your resume. Again, let's not overcomplicate the resume. Let's make it really simple to understand, really simple to read, and let's make sure that these rookie recruiters can be like, oh, I know what Steve does, right? They may not understand some of the technical jargon around the 7 Linux build systems that you did, but if you can simply explain it to them in a way where you are handpicked from management to do these things, like, yeah, that's great. I love it.
I have
Oh,
a
that's a fantastic way to say it. And then I'll work. But you do say you need some of the jargon for the control F people, but then you're saying explain it is what I'm hearing you say. Is that correct?
Yeah, you got to do both. But again, like just try not to overcomplicate it. I think that's really the bullet points and the really like the storytelling in resumes are the two biggest areas where I see folks struggle. Just really dumb it down, for lack of a better term, and really just like ask yourself your questions. Ask yourself questions as if you were the interviewer of yourself. I know that sounds weird. What are my responsibilities? What are the day in the life of my role? What are things that I'm proud of? And really just type those out in real time. And I think that's going to help to be a good storyteller. So
Okay. In a similar vein, I've got some very old experience, which is, the technologies have changed, but the experience is same along this line of handpicked to do special projects. Should I make another line on a third page or on um, for that kind of work? Because it is pretty cool work, but it's so old, I don't want to be, dismissed.
yeah, no, it's a fair point. I would probably just keep it in mind, right? So maybe you've got like two resumes. One are you're gonna the ones you're gonna submit, and the one's just for like notes for you for when you're actually interviewing. So maybe there are stories that you want to tell once you've landed an interview, and then from there you could say like, hey, X, Y, and Z may not be the most relevant today, but here's why I think it's relevant to this question or to this role or to this scenario, and let me tell you like about the outcomes.
Oh, fantastic. Because, yeah, I've limited mine to 2 pages because that's the standard advice. In my previous role, they actually came out and said, we want a Vita style resume. So it was like 5 or 6 pages, had everything in the kitchen sink, and they were happy, but they asked me for that. I didn't send that initially.
I have a follow-up on the formatting. I think there was like an extra carriage return line feed situation in here. And I find that as I'm submitting a PDF,
Mhm.
invariably it butchers the formatting. But if I submit a doc, it comes out when somebody else opens it in their preferences or operating system, that it also comes out all hodged
Yeah.
up. How do we deal with this?
I think I made a comment on LinkedIn like 2 hours ago that like the system's broken. So I'm not really answering your question, Susan. I think all the ATSs compete with one another. I think Workday is a friggin' nightmare, and that's probably the worst for formatting, right? My advice would be PDF is probably best because of the reasons that you shared about the docx files. Don't ever do a text file, please. So probably just PDF. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so watch what they need. Obviously, if they say a doc file, you're going to give them one, but you're saying prefer a PDF.
I would
Okay.
prefer a PDF because, to Susan's point, I mean, if it's been shared around and resaved and all the things, the format could just be all jacked. So,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, of course. All right, we got a couple more, so bear with me while I go to the next one. Ray, y'all see my screen? We're good to go. All right, so this is me being really nitpicky, Ray, but I would maybe just do Ray Phelps for the name. I don't know why. I just feel like lots of names can be confusing for folks, but maybe it's not for you. I don't know. But not a bad intro paragraph. I think again, I want to hear more about you being results oriented. Again, I just want to refer to like the language that I typically see. hardworking, dedicated, results oriented. I see that stuff pretty typical, or even proven track record. Just tell me more. I want to hear more. And I think if you can explain it, it can make this intro paragraph even more powerful. So again, it's a good start. But let's beef that up a little bit. As far as skills go, again, overall to the eyes, not terrible to look at. I would get rid of some basic stuff, and this is not only for you, this is for anybody who's listening. Get rid of Slack, get rid of Outlook, get rid of Excel. If y'all were an admin or an office manager, yeah, put that stuff in there. But y'all are technical. I know you know how to pick up something brand new, even if it's not listed here. And again, talk about how you've kind of used some of these skills in your bullet points. I really like your style here at the beginning, talking like having a little paragraph on talking about maybe the company and or like what a TLDR of what your role is. Again, it makes it easy for someone to quickly understand without having to, oh, I don't even know what Papa is. That Papa John's? I don't know. Let me Google them real quick, right? So
No, they were a elderly care
no, no,
company.
no, no, no. I definitely
Oh,
understand. But if like
gotcha.
there's some
All right,
green
never mind.
recruiter, they're like, I don't know what Papa is, right? So instead of having to like, go and Google it, like you're giving them a little bit of understanding of what they can expect. Um, so I love that in the bullet points you're talking through the ROIs and outcomes. Again, if you got it, use it. If you don't, not a big deal, but definitely talk through like outcomes if possible. And then I think the other nitpicky thing that I'll share is you did a good job setting up the kind of day in the life of your senior QA role at Papa. But I want to know how you've used the things, right? So you talked about a web application, but you also talked about the mobile testing piece as part of your workflow. How did you do that? What skills or tools did you use to do the things that you say you're going to do? Again, I know that you have the experience because you're telling me up here, but I'm not really to see like how you've done it. So if a hiring manager comes to me and says, well, what experience does Ray have, with mobile or with web application and tooling, I could say it's here, but I just don't know, right? Hopefully that makes sense. I would say the same feedback is kind of littered throughout the resume. Just great intros. Make sure you're just telling me more about the things and the tools that you've used to do the things that you did very, very well. Okay. Um, no concern on length outside of maybe just ending here at Lenovo. And by ending, I mean just ending like the bullet points, like we talked about, maybe have an other section or additional experience or whatever you want to call it. Literally just boom, 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 boom. Do what Patty did and just list the name, maybe the dates, the title, and then kind of be done with it and use it as a talking point for when you land interviews, right? Um, cool. Other than that, go Pirates. I told you. Let's get rid of the date here. And same thing for military. So appreciate your service, but let's get rid of the dates so that there's no bias there. I love the interests, right? So even if you wanted to throw interest into your intro paragraph, Ray, I think that's cool, right? Maybe you somehow flood that in, or if you want to just keep it here at the bottom and leave it as is, I'm good with that too. So not a lot of concern outside of just general not length, 'cause that's not what I'm referring to, just amount of jobs listed. Maybe we'll cut that down from the last 15 years or so. Beef up these bullet points. Tell me about how you've used these skills listed here. Get rid of some of the older stuff that may not be applicable. And I think you're going to be in a good spot. So, all right. Questions for you, Ray?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, sweet. All right, we're almost done, y'all, I swear. All right, so going back to, let's see if it'll let me do this. So if we're not connected on LinkedIn, send me a connect. I'd love to work with y'all in the future, whether it's for any jobs that I'm hiring for, or potentially even, some of the resume stuff. As I was telling Susan, I usually do consulting if I'm in between jobs and or if I'm really in a pinch and looking to do stuff on the weekends and at night. But if you guys are really in a jam, maybe it's something we can work through in the coming months. But definitely follow me for tips that I'm doing. I post this stuff pretty frequently and or jobs that I'm hiring for at my company. And I want to thank you all for your time and your attention and want to use the last maybe 10 minutes that we've got for any other Q&A. So thanks, y'all.
Awesome. Where do we want to start? Who's got a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Hey,
I,
Darren.
hey, Corey. Yeah, we actually worked together a long time ago. It feels like a long time ago, but
Yeah, nice. Good to see you, buddy.
yeah, you too. Yeah, so I'm trying to make these quick. I go in reverse order. You shared about like interests and hobbies, like that at the end. Um, is isn't it possible for that to leave space for some bias as well? Especially if they're like more faith-based.
Yes,
Or as
definitely,
an example. Okay.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, Here's what I tell folks. So for example, whether it's faith-based or maybe it's around like inclusion or DE&I initiatives, like if that's important for you, you're probably going to apply to jobs that have a similar type of mission. So if it's important to you, then I would keep it. I agree that there could be some bias around both of the examples that I provided, but if it's important, keep it. If it's definitely going to be part of like the culture you're joining, definitely keep it. If the two contradict another, like the culture is just completely different than maybe what some of your hobbies or, interests are, but we all need a job, right? Then
Right,
maybe
right, right.
maybe cut it out. That would be my advice.
Okay. Trying to make this rapid fire because there's other folks on the call. Uh, one of the things, is it old school to share if a particular job was like full-time or contract role or part-time, like, or is that still relevant?
I think it's relevant. I'm going to ask you about it anyways, right?
Okay.
So, because it's important for me, right? So let's assume you've got 10 jobs in 5 years and you don't have any context around what types of jobs they were. I'm going to assume that maybe they were contracts or maybe you just got caught up in crappy luck these days with all the layoffs, but I'm still going to ask you about it. So I don't think it hurts you to have them listed there.
Okay. Um, and the last question that I have, or general question I have, is related to the list of skills. So like being a tester at an agency, um, uh, like I'm going to touch a lot of different things,
Yeah.
right? And being on different projects, for 6 months or 12 months at a time, it just requires me to have requires a lot of depth, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a lot of breadth of
Yeah.
knowledge of different things. And so, the thought of like, focusing on things that you primarily, or that I would primarily, work on, is kind of obscure a little bit because like it, I'm going to be touching on a lot of different things. So how can I do that? How can I display that on my resume where I'm avoiding like unnecessary like redundancy
Yeah.
with what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Um, and I guess that's in connection to like, if you have skills on your resume, then like mention those skills in um, the descriptions of the job.
Yeah, so I've worked with folks like you who have come from the agency space where you're there for 5 years and you work on 8 different projects. So what I would encourage you to do is break them down the way that, sorry, Ray, I forgot your name for a second, for the way that Ray did, right? So maybe let's assume you're building out Netflix's app, right? So maybe here at Senior QA, Netflix project 2021 to 2022. Here's the TLDR of what you're responsible for, and then the specific technologies that you used on the Netflix project are here, and then you can then brag about what you did with Facebook and what you did with XYZ company, on down. So I would break it down just as Ray has here. If you have agency experience, you want to showcase the wins that you have for that particular role without kind of duplicating and repeating yourself throughout the resume. Of
Okay. Thank you.
course.
We got a question in chat and I have a double down on it. So do I put my resumes or my references in my resume?
No.
Okay. The double down is who should my resume or references be when they're solicited? Like I applied for a graduate program, they don't care about my employer's input, but my high school teacher isn't going to be useful in
Yeah.
the job either. So like how do I pick my references?
Yeah, it's tough and it's situational, right? So I would say like if it's, from job A to job B in the same industry, then maybe you're just looking for a peer and a managerial reference. That can be tough as well, right? So maybe your boss doesn't know that you're interviewing for a job, right? So in that case, maybe you only have one job and you don't want your boss to know that you're interviewing. So in that case, maybe you're choosing someone like a mentor or, a professor or something along those lines. So it's a really fairly loaded question. I would just say try to have one peer and one like managerial-ish type of reference, and two should suffice, right? There are gonna be some companies that ask for five, but two or three should suffice. So,
Anybody
and I
else?
just wouldn't list them. I wouldn't list them. It's just space on your resume. People are gonna get ask for them anyways if they want them. So,
Awesome. All right, Matt's happy with that answer. All right. Well, we're at the end of the hour. Thanks y'all for hanging in. Corey, I got a ton out of this, and I have been knee deep. Oh, here's one for cover letters, yay or nay.
I'm so glad you brought this up, Patty. I'll give you a TLDR. Yes, do them. As a candidate, I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. But I read cover letters. If your resume is garbage and you've got a really cool cover letter that tells me about your journey that your resume doesn't, that's going to give you an opportunity to stand out. So yes, do them. Yes, customize them. Try not to use ChatGPT to do it because I can tell when you do. Sorry. Make it yourself. Show your personality, show your fun, show your style. Yes, definitely do it.
I always do the AI start, right? So LinkedIn helped me write a cover letter, and then I'm like, okay, I don't like any of this. So, but it tells me what to say and like what the key skills are for this that are listed in the LinkedIn posting. So that's one way that I feel like I got around the.
I got a follow-up to that.
Go ahead,
Uh,
Patty.
what about the whole being laid off two or three times in the last 3 years? Do you be blunt about that in the cover letter or um
Yeah.
yeah, because I know a lot of us have gone through it.
Yeah, so Darren and I worked together at Willow Tree. I got laid off from Willow Tree, and my resume said I got laid off from Willow Tree. I even talking about like 12% of the company got laid off because I didn't want it to be like
That's
a
another question. Do you bullet point any in the line? Like,
I do because I'm a crazy person. But yeah,
okay,
yeah, I
Well, but
mean,
you're also in recruiting, right? So as an engineer, it might be a different thing, no?
um, 10 years ago, maybe. It's so common right now. I'd say 60 to
Yeah,
70% of the people I'm interviewing every single day, the reason they're talking to me is because they were laid off. And they've been laid off multiple
100%.
times. So I wouldn't,
It's
it's not the knock that you think it is, or it used to be, right? So
okay.
Yeah. It's definitely not you, it's everyone.
yeah,
Is
facts.
that a line on your
It's
resume and
absolutely
also
everyone.
a line on your resume
Uh,
and also a note in the cover letter, or
Again, a good recruiter is going to ask you about why you're here. Hopefully, they're
okay,
going to be empathetic with your situation, not be like, yeah, well, it is what it is type of thing.
yeah,
I wouldn't, if you want to put it in your cover letter or your resume, I don't think it's going to hurt you because, like I said, it's so normal right now, which is so shitty. So,
okay,
well, the other thing that I might
Um,
say to that is that it's daunting to be out here looking for a job and like submitting and submitting and submitting and submitting and not getting any feedback
yeah,
ever. But it's no longer like you can be laid off and it can feel like your performance hit, and that is not true. That's not the case.
100%.
You have to continue to float and you have to continue to look at the light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to get there eventually. There will be another job.
Yeah,
It's
and go ahead.
it's brutal. That's all.
It is, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
the market is so saturated with every skill set out there, to including especially roles that I'm working in, like recruiting and talent roles. There's just so many people. So yes, it's a broken record, but y'all aren't alone if you've been laid off and you're struggling. It's nuts. It's insane.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
thanks
know
for
I
the good
posted
word.
this on, I was gonna say, I posted this on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, but I had a senior tester position for 3 weeks and I had about 1,000 resumes go through for that one position.
I posted a .NET engineer position on Friday before close of business, and on Monday I had over 700 applicants. 700 in 3 days. I don't know what to say other than that. So.
Well, awesome. Corey, thank you so much for these insights. I do apologize again. I thank you guys for hanging in and getting to the meat of this conversation, because there was a lot of good takeaways. And we will be back in April. We have Lisa Crispin talking. So she's authored a couple of books on testing, agile testing days, and things like that. So please do come see us then. I will pay attention to the settings on Zoom. And I'll reiterate what I said earlier, which is that we are selling tickets for the conference this fall in September, and we have room for a couple more local speakers. We'd love to see you talk either here at the meetup or at the conference, or tell your boss, tell your team, hey, there's this awesome conference, and do like Steve did, make sure you talk about TSQA on your resume.
Hey, if you don't mind for a second, I actually am hiring for a position right now that's open. It's been
Neat.
really hard to fill, so I'm just going to go ahead and share this here. If any of you or you know someone, it's for a senior integrations tester with specific healthcare experience, especially like in EHRs. I've just had an absolute rough time trying to find the right person for this. So I need someone who's very senior and who's a strong coder who can really dig into the medical health record piece of it all. So yeah, if you or anyone you know is a good fit for this, send them my way. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for that announcement. That is actually something I normally do at the start. So, uh, when we were in person, we would go around who's looking for a job and who's hiring to talk to each other. Ray's like, "Hey, I got a resume. I'll talk to you later." All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Make some noise, and we'll see you out there.
Thanks.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.